I'm Rory Green from XR Today, bringing you the latest in news and conversation from the extended reality space. Today, I'm joined by Erfan Saadati, senior XR producer at Happy Finish and the co-creator of the immersive documentary Child of Empire. Thanks for joining me today, and I'd also like to say well done on the project, as I believe it presents a great example of innovative storytelling.
No, thank you for having me and the kind words, Rory. Happy to be here.
Can you introduce our readers to Happy Finish and the Child of Emperor project?
Sure. Happy Finish is a creative agency. We work across stills, XR, animation, all sorts of stuff. We work mostly with commercial partners. But I guess Child of Empire is slightly different to our usual stuff. It's actually it's a personal project that I started before I joined Happy Finish, but then I had the support of the company and my team to complete it whilst I started working here. Child of Empire is a docudrama about the partition of India, told through the eyes of two survivors, one from the Pakistan side and one from the India side.
And I'm interested to learn more about the initial pitching and development processes behind an immersive documentary, opposed to more conventional routes.
So it's like in many ways. So I've been making VR documentaries for a number of years now, and in many ways it's got like a lot of advantages, and I guess there's some disadvantages. That's why like not every project might be right for a immersive documentary approach, but certainly for projects that you want the users to feel as part of the story and like to walk in someone else's shoes, as was the case for Child of Empire, as we wanted to put people through feeling that to have like an empathic connection with our survivors, and we wanted them to walk a mile in their shoes. It felt like the right approach. Other examples are great where, like, you know, when you want to take someone to somewhere like to a different place. So we've used it quite a lot for like branded content when working with charity partners, because it literally does give you a different world perspective from the world. I believe once I heard someone describe VR as a journalist, and I can't remember her name, but she described basically as a journalist, your job is to recreate your experience of what you feel in the field, and VR is the next best thing to actually being there. So for like again, like just to go back to it, there are like, you know, certain examples like, you know, like investigative journalism or investigative documentaries where VR might not be the best use case. But certainly for like projects where you want to take viewers to a destination or travel through time, as was the case for Child of Empire, it's definitely more fitting.
Of course. I feel that Child of Empire works to reduce the distance between a documentary subject and the audience. How do you feel about that interpretation?
Well, I mean, I'm very happy that's how you've interpreted it, because when we set out to make Child of Empire, we definitely didn't want to make it feel like a documentary or for you to feel like this is like a subject matter. We wanted you to be a part of the story and feel as part of we wanted you to be interested in the narrative as opposed to necessarily like, you know, the politics of it or the circumstances of it. And that partially why we went with having two heroes talking to each other is that VR can be quite daunting at times when you have like a voiceover speaking at you, and then you have all this stuff that you're experiencing. Like you said, tend to sometimes lose information, but by having them talk to each other, it felt more like you're listening in on an already existing conversation, sort of like, you know, like like sort of like almost eavesdropping to become part of the conversation, which we felt like it worked quite well.
Definitely, and I feel that's represented very much by the two narrators you have, and I feel like it's especially emphasised during the train segment and during the moments when you hear the footsteps coming towards you I was both looking for the child under the seats while kind of looking around me, expecting to almost be jump scared by the arriving footsteps. And I felt right in that moment, right in that place.
Yeah, like, well, actually, like we originally, like, this project has gone through like quite a few creative redevelopments. Originally, we were planning to have the child as the main hero, and you follow in his footsteps, whilst like a composite story of like multiple characters is told through a voiceover. But we sort of stayed away from that because almost, you know, like having two main characters made a lot more sense at the time. Um and yeah, basically creating like those flashbacks, we just tried to recreate them as dramatic as possible, because those were like a few of the moments where we could take some creative license in creating more, not maybe like for like replacement, but recreate the mood and the feeling. So like the steps as you described them, you know, it hopefully like invokes the sort of tension and like, you know, like what a 7-year-old would feel in that particular time. But yeah, that almost feeling like of anything could happen at any given point. But thankfully our survivors obviously made it. But also it's like a nod to like the millions who didn't make it, whose stories didn't get to live beyond that point.
So going to those real life stories, can you explain the processes and how you feel when you were translating the real life stories into an immersive journey?
So when we started out this project, and like this project Child of Empire is a collaboration between us and a project Dastan, which is like a peace building initiative which aims to take back survivors back to their homelands. So as part of that, we had about 30 or 40 different people that we had originally interviewed, and we cut that down to like the most like interest. Well, it's wrong to say interesting, but the ones that we felt would translate the best on screen. And originally, as I said, we had planned it to be a composite story where like you go through like multiple people's lives without noticing the difference. But like, you know, the story stays the same. But ultimately, we decided to go with two different people's stories. You know, it started transition between the two different stories. Basically, the words that you hear, we have paraphrased them to make it more poetic a little bit, but the stories are extremely accurate to the survivors' recounts. So we've taken their interviews and transcribed them, and basically taken from there. I had a writer work on, again, making it a bit more poetic, making a bit more free flowing, like in a conversation. But everything else that you see or hear is very true to the story.
How did the BFI, the Doc Society, and the National Lottery, how did they react to your immersive project during the pitching period?
So I believe when we, it's actually the funds for this project came from a few different sources. And we applied for Doc Society funding. I think they were quite excited about it because, first of all, like I think the subject matter was close to a few of the members, like, you know, consciousness. And like I think, you know, like we were at a time where like these sort of marginalized stories were becoming were given more and more voice. I believe our commission was one of the first ones, if not the first, that the Doc Society had engaged with from a VR perspective. So there was a little bit of like sort of like educating each other on what a VR documentary will look and feel like. So I think they were quite excited both by the subject matter and the technique used.
And how about debuting on Meta's App Lab platform? Did that independent, less regulated platform give you any benefits when distributing the project?
Well, to be honest, the project hasn't been fully distributed yet. Actually, like right now, it's just it's only been out on Sundance, and like a selected few people have actually seen it. We went on the App Lab with the help of the Sundance curators, and it was mainly like as a distribution channel for Sundance, because obviously the physical event got canceled. So quite a few people saw it through the App Lab. But it's super helpful because, being able to send a link to someone that they can just view on their headset is a lot easier than having to go through the tedious process of sending someone an APK, side loading. It just makes it a lot more accessible. And that's something that VR in general could do a lot more with accessibility, I think. So yeah, it has been very helpful. And hopefully we will get it published on the actual App Store at some point.
And just diverting a little bit, I'm interested to learn more about sending a VR film project to festivals over conventional 2D film projects. Did you face any challenges when trying to show your piece to festivals or individuals?
Yeah, it is a very tight community. Like, the VR world still, like, it's still not a huge group, and thankfully we had like exposure to some of the biggest members, or like some of the most established members of the community through Creative XR and like just generally like using our network. But generally speaking, I would say if you have a good film, yeah, it's like a traditional documentary. It's all about reaching out. It's 99% applying and sending it to the right people, and getting it seen by as many people. And then once, hopefully, if the project has the merits, people will pick it up. And we were super proud that like Sundance was happy to showcase our project.
Of course. How do you foresee the lifespan of immersive storytelling using virtual or augmented and mixed reality platforms?
So I feel like, like we're like, if you would ask me this question like 5, 7 years ago, 5, 6 years ago, I would have said, yeah, it would be very difficult to like sort of backdate it. But if I feel like more and more processes that we take on, and especially with Meta and Oculus becoming such an established part of the industry, there's definitely like that sort of like there has been like a lot, like some work being done about figuring out ways to archive projects so that it's accessible like when you pick it up in the future. Right now I would say probably like VR is a bit more standard in that sense, because it can be a video if need to be, or like it's more in most cases it's a build. Whereas AR is a lot more platform dependent. I mean, like not that VR isn't, but yeah, like I mean, like our project, the simplest way to like sort of I guess future proof it is to like make a 360 video version of it, and then just like preserve it as you would with any video. If but otherwise, like you would need like anyone with an Oculus platform can access the project. Whereas I would say maybe AR is like tends to be more for mobile, so it's very dependent on like the version of the phone you're using, or if it's like a HoloLens project or a Magic Leap project. Obviously, it has its own process as well. But definitely, I would say in the last couple of years, there's been a huge push by the industry to make these preserving the projects for future viewings a lot simpler and more standard, I would say.
That's a really interesting point, because I've never really considered the idea of archiving not just VR cinematic experiences, but then augmented mixed reality projects, builds, etc. I think that's a whole rabbit hole almost that's going to emerge soon.
Yeah, for sure. And like, like I think it's almost like the difficult right now, because it is a bit of a wild west, the whole industry, I would say a little bit. As is like any new industry. But yeah, it's definitely leading towards a more systematic and process driven environment. We've had a few chats with BFI on like just advising them on how to yeah, figure out that side of the thing, where like the archiving, the future proofing. Yeah.
That's great work, and it's great stuff to hear. Before we finish, I wanted to ask about the metaverse ambitions that are happening at Happy Finish.
So we've actually just set up like a advisory group called MSG, Metaverse Steering Group, I believe. Obviously we're like our role, sort of taking off my filmmaker headset. I'm putting on more of my Happy Finish and producer hat on. We're very much more in the realm of like basically assisting brands in finding their place in this new space. Um, like there's a lot of obviously information out there about the metaverse, NFTs, and like sort of like buzzwords generally like that. But you know, like we've been doing like a lot of work for the last 10 years in you know like helping brands find their place in this sort of new space. So yeah, like we get like briefs like yeah, our job is basically just helping our clients find their place in the metaverse.
Cool, fantastic. And with that, I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank you, excuse me, for your time. I want to know what's the best way for our readers to keep up to date with Happy Finish as well as the Child of Emperor project.
Yeah, but Happy Finish, you do like you will get like a lot of like follow our Instagram and LinkedIn to keep up with our latest projects. Our marketing team does a great job at sharing our latest work. With the Child of Empire, I would say following Project Dustan's Instagram account is the most up to date with in terms of the where the project's at. But come July, there will be like a huge push from our from the team in getting it into a few venues. There's a few venues that we have earmarked or like are in talks with about showcasing. I'm not sure if I can confirm them right now, but definitely keep your eyes out. There will be like events all around London and hopefully worldwide.
Oh, very exciting news then. I'd like to finish up saying I'm Rory Green from XR Today. Get more XR news by following our social pages, and thank you for watching.